it's through what we call storytelling formats. And these are kind of structures that help us convey our message, our genius out there. And the fascinating thing is, people look at social media as it's like this brand new thing. It's this mystery black box, and it's like playing the lottery. We can't figure it out. But in reality, it's just another storytelling medium.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another powerful episode of Mick Unplugged. And if you think you are an influencer, this is the episode for you. From pioneering YouTube influence campaigns and building digital platforms for Taylor Swift and Rihanna, to generating 1 million views and follows in just 30 days. He's the visionary who cracked the code on instant attention in our 3-second world. Get ready for the dynamic, the daring, the disruptive. My guy, Mr. Brendan Kane. Brendan, how
I'm
you doing
doing
today,
well.
brother?
It's a pleasure to connect with you and everybody that's tuning in for this.
Absolutely. Honored to connect with you, man. Like, there's so much that I want to talk to you about, Brendan, because I feel like I hate using the term guru and expert, but I feel like you are that in the social media space. And I want to talk about your books. But my first question for you, Brendan, is what's your because, man? Like, what's that thing that keeps you doing what you do? That thing that's deeper than your why? Like, if I were to say Brendan Kane, brother, what's your because? What would that be?
I think I'm fascinated with what it takes to stand out at the highest levels. And that, starts
Mm,
as like most people does in childhood. Like, why do we do most of the things we do is because of the experiences that we have in childhood. And, for me, there was a lot of instances of being bullied or, trying to make friends or things of that nature that oftentimes you struggle with and I struggled with. And through that
yeah.
experience, I just for some reason I just kind of latched on, well, how do you connect with other people? How do you connect with the people that you truly want to connect with, whether it's a friend group, a teacher, as you get into the workforce, in my instance, it was in the movie studio. How do you connect with a movie producer or an actor, things of that nature? But I've always been fascinated with how you can stand out at the highest levels. And in the work
Mm,
that I do today, I just firmly believe that there's people all over the world that have the ability to transform it in a positive way. They just need that helping hand, those tools, that knowledge to get
yeah.
their message heard. And that's what really drives me every
Mm,
day.
mm. I love that, dude. I love that so much. And I told you offline, I've been a huge follower, believer, subscriber to all the things that you do. And one of the things that you're very clear about, and it's why I love you, is you don't have to be a celebrity or a big name to connect with people that want to connect with you, right? I think there's always this big misconception that people believe, oh, you need a billion followers, you need 60 billion views to gain credibility. But your message to people is always the first step is authentically, you have to be you and you have to know who you are to connect with others. Why is that so important for people to grasp and understand?
Because especially in the world today where we consume so much content. We are seeded so much content. Like we're all professionals at consuming content, whether it's mostly on our phone through all the
Right.
social media content, but even like if you think about all the streaming services that we have at our disposal today, because we are
Mm,
so accustomed to all of this, people can see through that inauthenticity super quick. And it may not even be happening on a conscious level, it may be happening on an unconscious level. So the minute that you're trying to be something that you're not, people can see through that and you just won't have the impact that you're looking for.
I dig that. I usually do tips and tricks later, but I have the great Brendan Kane on here, right? So what's a tip for the listener or viewer to discover that first step that you're talking about? Like what's something that they can do to truly understand their true authenticity?
So the way that I look at the world of social media and all of the work that we do is it's through what we call storytelling formats. And these are kind of
Mm,
structures that help us convey our message, our genius
yeah.
out there. And the fascinating thing is People look at social media as it's like this brand new thing. It's this mystery black box and it's like playing the lottery. We can't figure it out. But in reality, it's just another storytelling medium. And the people that
Mm,
rise to the top are the best storytellers. So it's survival of the fittest, but in this case, survival of the fittest, the best storytellers. So what we do is we analyze these different formats or structures. Now, a format that everybody knows outside of social media is movies. So I started my career in the movies, and every movie over the past 100 years has used the same three act structure. That is their format. Whether it's Steven Spielberg
mm,
making Jaws, or Quentin Tarantino making Pulp Fiction, whatever your favorite movie is, it's following that same format. Now, as it applies to social media, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of these formats. So our team has done about 10,000 hours of research analyzing over 450
yeah,
formats. And the reason we go that to that level is we want to make sure that we can find the authentic format to the individual. So, like to give you an example, one format that people have most likely seen is called man on the street, where you approach a random stranger on the
mhm,
street and you engage and unfold. Now, that format, that structure is used for many different industries and many different subject matters. So I have a friend slash client, Alex Stemp, who's a photographer who amassed an audience of 20 million people
mhm,
approaching random strangers on the street and offering them professional photo shoots. Then you have people like School of Hard Knocks that ask people, how did you make your first $1 million? Or Body by Mark, he asks people what they do for their fitness workout. The reason I say
mhm.
that is one of the first places to start in finding how you can show up as authentic is make this shift in your mindset from a passive experience when you're on social media of just scrolling through, and make it an active approach. When you find something that's working, immediately just think to yourself, could I see myself doing that? Like, could I share my message through that? If not, don't do it. Like, because there's so much to choose from. And I hate when people kind of give this advice or feel that they have to do something or show up in a certain way if it doesn't feel authentic to them, because there's so much
Yeah.
opportunity. So the first place to start is really become a student and start identifying, well, what structures or what content creators are doing something in a way that you could see yourself sharing your message in that same way.
I love that, dude, and I parallel that same thing in speaking, right? Like, I do keynote speaking, and I coach other speakers, and I tell them, "You have to find your voice," right? Because me personally, I'm not someone that yells and screams and does a lot of voice inflection on stage. That works for some people. When I try that, it's awful because I hate it. It's not who I am. And I tell people the same thing. You have to find your voice. And I think you're saying that same thing with social. You have to find who you are. And I wanted to ask you this question more for me personally, because I know you test everything. You just talked about what your team does. You write about, you're an over tester, right? Like you're not just an overachiever, you're an over tester, but you want to have the right data for your clients and also for you. So my question is, can you have multiple templates? Is that a thing that you can do in social, right? Can you be person on the streets? Can you be masterclass type? Can you be the, hey, here are 5 tips and tricks to help you do whatever? Like, can someone have multiple templates in social? And then two, should they?
Great question. The answer is yes, you can. What I typically recommend is start with one and master the process of one, because you're going to learn a tremendous amount. So, like the analogy I give is like, let's just say that we're going to learn a musical instrument. When you learn a musical
Mhm.
instrument, you don't want to shift the goalpost each week. Like you start with the drums week one and then move to the violin week two, and then the flute week three, and keep switching it up. No, you want to spend, let's just say we're going to spend the next few months mastering the piano. And through that
Yeah.
process, you can do it. Or if you think about learning a language, you don't learn 5 languages at the same time. You learn one, but that process of learning one language is applicable to learning the next one. So yes, you can
Yeah.
diversify, but what I always tell people is, try and find, you can do a little bit of experimentation in the beginning to see which one you like, because obviously you need to enjoy this. Like, this needs to be fun for you. Um But then
Right.
kind of once you found that, just try and stick to one, if not one, I wouldn't go more than two until you've actually gone through the process of mastering one, and then you can diversify out from there.
Yeah. That's so I need that. And I'm writing that down for me personally because I feel like I've mastered one, but I have folks who are like, oh, well, you should do like a masterclass look. And I'm like, well, I don't know if that's really me. Like, I feel like it's me, but I don't know. And so I'm going to take some of your principles and I'm going to test. I'm going to start testing out some formats and templates that actually are truly authentic to me now that I feel like I've mastered one style. Um, Brendan, another question that I have for you before we get into your book. For the listener, the viewer that's out there that's like, I'm on social, but I don't know if it's relevant for my business or for me and my brand to be on social. Or, they're out there, but they haven't put the energy into, I'm not even going to say try growing their followers, but just putting out content. What's some advice that you have for that person? And Roger Sitkins, I'm talking to you on this
So
one.
I always like to start with, why aren't you doing it? Because there's different reasons.
Mm,
Some people will say, I hate social media. I don't want to be on social media. And my follow-up question is why? Like, is it you don't feel comfortable on
mm,
camera? Is there something about it that's holding you back? And oftentimes it really has nothing to do with social media. It has to do something with themselves that they haven't just really
yep,
worked through. Is it a time restraint? Is it a resource restraint? Like, what is holding you back? Because uh, one of
mm,
the other reasons that we do so much work on our end to really analyze all these formats is I want people to be able to start with the resources that they have available. Literally, with this
yeah,
thing here, a phone in our pocket, with this and a great story, you can reach millions of people. You don't have to have
mm,
a massive team. You don't have to have fancy equipment.
right,
Now, there are formats that lend itself to that. And if you want to do that, that's great. But where
mm,
people are starting today is I want them to just be able to start with the resources they have so there's nothing holding them back. Another thing
yeah,
people will say that holds them back is, you know what, my business is just isn't interesting enough. I'm a dentist, I'm a tax accountant, I'm a lawyer. That's not going to work on social media. But the reality is anything can work on social media. We made a dentist go viral, got 21 million views on a single video. Like, any subject matter, if it's packaged in the right way, can go viral, can gain traction to grow your business. Now, obviously,
mm,
social media is not the only way to grow a business, and I'm not going to say it's the only way because there's multiple facets that you can grow businesses. But if you're looking to really scale your audience, having that impact and beating out any competition
yeah.
that you have, if you master this skill set, it will put you light years ahead of anybody else and will continue to scale to whatever level that you want to scale to.
Freaking genius. That's why you were
Well,
that
the other
guy,
interesting
man.
thing that I'll say
How
to this is people always ask me, and I hear this question a lot, is like, what is the true ROI of social media? And the fascinating thing to
mm,
that is the answer is, well, it's as big as your vision. Like, I know people that make
yes.
$0 off of social media. I've known people that have leveraged social media to build billion-dollar businesses. Like, somebody I know, Michelle
Mhm.
Fan, was one of the original YouTube influencers. She took her audience and founded a company, called Ipsy. Within 3 years, it was doing $120 million a year in revenue. At one point, it was valued at over $800 million. Like, literally,
Yeah.
this platform, the tool that we have at our disposal, in our hand, in our pocket, can achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. And that doesn't mean you have to create a
Mhm.
billion-dollar company. Maybe you just want to, put enough food on the table, put your kids through college, whatever your dream is.
Yeah.
Social media is a tool that can help you get there in a faster, more scalable and predictable way than anything else that we've seen in history.
Totally agree. Totally agree. You know, Brendan, a lot of times people get overwhelmed by the different social platforms, right? Because the content on YouTube might be different than the content you put on LinkedIn, which might be different than the content you put on Instagram and Facebook. How can people get over that feeling of overwhelm? And like for me, I started out just focusing on one platform, and then I added in Instagram. And I told you I still haven't figured out YouTube like that, but like I didn't allow myself to get overwhelmed. I knew who my audiences are on the various platforms, right? And I learned that from you through testing. Like, Mick, the content that you put on Instagram might not work on LinkedIn, but some of the content you put on LinkedIn might work on Instagram. Like, how can you help people not be overwhelmed by the multiple platforms and thinking that they need a ton of content on various platforms?
So the first place that I like to everything should start with what is the format that is the right fit for you, and that format will then dictate the platform. So there's certain formats that
Mhm.
work better on certain platforms. With that
Yep.
with that in mind, the other thing that I really advise people is start with the platform that you love the most. What is the platform that you
Mhm.
use every day? Because that is because again, we have to be students of the game. Like we have to be able to kind of go in there
Right.
and understand how not just how our content's performing, but how other people are performing. What are they doing differently than me? So the first piece of advice is um, choose the format, and the format will dictate the platform. And the second piece is like go with the platform that you use the most, and then just focus on that.
Yeah.
You can what I say again, like when we're talking about choosing the format, we want to pick one thing and get really good at and master it. The more we spread our
Mhm.
attention, the less we become a master of anything. So with social media is I say choose one platform, master that platform. Now that doesn't mean you can't take that same content and post it on other platforms, but don't expect a lot from it. Don't get upset if it doesn't perform. Just focus on the one you can still distribute
Mhm.
the others, but it does create a lot of anxiety and it does burn people out when they think about, oh my God, I've got to create 20 pieces of content a day across all these platforms and things of that nature. So the reality is each one of these platforms has close to 2 billion people on it, the major ones. Like your audience
Mhm.
is there in scale. If you master any one of these platforms, you're going to have more business than you know what to do with. So just
Yeah.
simplify it, start with one, master it, and if you still want to syndicate that same content out to others, you can.
Yeah. So you kind of hit on it a little bit with the billions of people that are on the various platforms. Your latest book, 1 million followers. How I built a massive social following in 30 days. Dude, so one, thank you to your team for sending me a copy of this. And I'm gonna order copies because I have clients that need this because I've read this in 2 weeks. I've literally have read this twice. That's how amazing the book is and how much insights are there. One, I want to know what was your reason for saying I need to put this book out?
So it was so I started my career in the entertainment industry. I worked for movie studios, and then I did several
Mhm.
partnerships with MTV and Viacom that allowed me to work with a lot of mainstream celebrities and musicians and things of that nature. And as we were talking about earlier, a lot of people will think that social media is just reserved for the celebrity. It's reserved for the rock star. It's reserved for the corporation. And I just doing this for 20 years, I know that's not the case. Like the power of what we
Mhm.
have in our pocket and a mobile device has changed the world for all of us. And what do I mean by that? If
Yeah.
we think about 20 years ago, pre-social media, or just 25 years ago where there's no social media, literally how did we reach the masses? How did we reach millions of people with our message? 99% of us couldn't. We had to go through a television station. We had to have a publicist. We had to have massive marketing budgets. But literally today, with
Yeah.
a phone in our pocket, we can pull it out, record something, and if it's a great story, we can reach the masses. So it's democratized communication to millions of people for everyone. So what I wanted to really show
Mhm.
with that book is when I was writing that and did that experiment, yes, I worked in the entertainment industry, but I wasn't in front of the camera. I wasn't on television
Mhm.
shows or in movies or on posters or any of those things. I wanted to demonstrate for people that you yourself can build a massive audience. You
Mm.
yourself can achieve your dreams or whatever your vision is with these platforms that we have available, that's available to all of us today.
Mhm. Yep. You know what my favorite part of your book
What?
is, Brendan? When you address your haters. So for those, and again, definitely go get the book, 1 Million Followers, How I Built a Massive Social Following in 30 Days. But I think it's like preface 2 when you're like, if you're a hater, this section is for you, right? And I love it because you address all the questions that I'm not going to call them haters. I'm going to call them doubters would have, right? Like, wait, did you do this organically? Did you use bots? Are your followers real? Is it true engagement? And you answer it precisely and succinctly. And I love that because I love all humans, but I also feel like there's a group of people whose natural instinct it is to doubt everything or to hate on everyone else's success. And you do a beautiful job of addressing that. And I love the fact that you're very direct. Like, hey, I test everything. You talk about in the book. I test everything. Like this doesn't just happen. There's work that goes into what people see as the end result. And I don't think people understand or appreciate enough of the work that you actually do before you ever talk
Yeah,
about
because
anything.
when I and it still holds true today, is like when I started in 2005 in this space, there's no manual. There's no like handbook to this. And even today, things are changing, things are adapting. These platforms are continuing to scale. Is everything that I do, and you asked me like my because my why, like I'm not
Hmm.
doing this for myself to make myself famous. I'm doing this because I want to learn as much as possible, and I want to create things that people can replicate so that I can help as many people as possible get their message out into the world. So over the course of 20
Yeah.
years, I've tested so many things that don't work. But how do you figure out if something doesn't
Right.
work if you don't test it?
Right.
Like that's a big part of that.
Right.
And yeah, I've rewritten that book a few different times, and you obviously see a lot of those comments and things being brought up without people that haven't read the book. So I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to throw it in the beginning and just call it out there. So, and I even put in there as
Right.
like, if you bought this book and you don't like it, I am more than happy to send you a refund for it. If you thought it was
Mm.
something else, and that's why I also put it in front of the book, because I don't want to waste people's time too if they don't think it like it's the right fit for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So 1 million followers in 30 days. Not to give the recipe because you give it in the book. So everybody can get the full recipe in the book. He goes line by line. But could you highlight a couple of things that the average ordinary person should do, not can do, but should do to grow an audience? And I'm not even going to say 1 million followers because for a lot of people 20,000 followers is a lot, right? Like I like to correlate this to my followers and my engagers. If they showed up in your front lawn, what would that look like, right? And so for some people, 1,000 is a big number and should be a big number to them. So what are a couple of things that people can do to start growing their following now that they're active on social?
So the first place to start is to know that success in these platforms is not luck. It is a science, and that science is storytelling. So the better you are at telling stories, the more success that you're going to have. You don't need to focus on what time of day you're trying to post, what hashtags you need to use, how many times a day that you need to post. None of those things matter in today's social media. The bottom line is, how can
Right.
you become the best storyteller possible on this platform? So the first place to start, as we were talking about earlier, is what is the format that is best suited for you? Because this is not about reinventing the wheel. Again, stories as we know it, like the earliest stories date back to 50,000 years ago. 50,000 years we've been telling stories. Stories have been used to build civilizations. It has been used to build humanity. And today, stories are being used to build brands. So if it can build a civilization,
Mhm.
it can help you build your brand. So what we do is we start with
Yeah.
the format, the structure that we can insert our message into it. Now, the amazing thing is a lot of these formats that we talk about predate social media, and that's how we know they work. So
mm,
we mentioned Man on the Street. The first time Man on the Street was used was back in 1954 for the first season of The Tonight Show. 1954,
mm.
and it's still being used today to generate billions and billions of views. Another
Right.
format, that's popular that people have probably seen is called 2 characters, 1 light bulb, and it's when it's the same person that plays 2 different characters. So they play the expert and the novice, and then
Mm,
they break down a common misconception about an industry. So you have, like, Mark Tilbury that does it about finance, or Erica Kolberg that does it around, like, the fine print in legal contracts. I remember seeing that format in the first Austin Powers movie in, like, 1998, where he played Doctor Evil and Austin Powers and breaking down these poignant things about society and things of that nature. So the first thing is, as we're tackling social media, we need to learn from those that have mastered it before us. Like I said, I started my
yeah.
career in the film industry. I went to film school. So what do you do when you go to film school? Well, you sit down and you watch classic movies. You learn how to write screenplays and these things to learn, well, how do the masters do it? How do the best storytellers in that format leverage it? So the best piece of advice that will, it works every single time if you do it, is study the platform you want to master, find the format that works, that excites you, and then just study what's the
Mm,
difference between that format generating millions of views versus that format generating thousands of views, and study all of these small elements and tweaks to it. And if you do that, that is the only thing that you need to pay attention to, and you will have success. If anybody else is telling you otherwise, I would just ignore them, because you're going to spin your wheels and waste a tremendous amount of time, energy, uh, in doing that. But if we think about anything that we do in life, we learn from those that come before us. And telling stories on
mm.
social media is no different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So your other your other books, man, like again, I'm so gravitated towards them. And like I told you, I have them for everybody that's watching. They're literally the top two, the first two books that you could see: The Guide to Going Viral and Hook Point. The Guide to Going Viral. So I know you talk about it in the book, and I wanna say this message to people, because I think sometimes people try too hard to go viral instead of letting it be a natural thing. I'm not saying that you shouldn't put energy into it, but where people go wrong is their first few posts that they do, they're like, "Oh, I'm going viral with this one," and it misses the mark because it's not who they are. What are some tips that you give out in the guide to going viral that are very important for people to know?
So I think very valid and great points. Number one is, I never believe in going viral for the sake of going viral. Like, it just, that's not why we're here. We're here to have whatever your goal is. If you're trying to build your brand, you're trying to sell products, you're trying to share your message, it needs to be related to your end goal. And if you're doing something that's not related to your subject matter, your expertise, or what you're trying to achieve, even if it gets a billion views, it doesn't matter. It has to correlate to who you are, how you want to show up, and what you're looking to achieve. In addition, like, that term virality, and it's funny because we developed that title as, initially a keynote, probably like 2.5, 3 years ago. So the term virality
Mhm.
wasn't as, like, loaded as a term as it is today, but everybody seems to be talking about, like, social media virality. But to me, like, going viral isn't a specific number. To me, it's about the
Right.
impact. And like you said, some people can get 50,000 views on something, and they've made the impact. They've generated the revenue, they've grown their business, whatever that is. And
Mhm.
that's amazing. Like, if that is what you're
Right.
trying to achieve, don't let anybody else cut that down. Some people are looking for
Right.
50,000 views. Some people are looking for 500,000. Some people we work with are looking for millions or tens of millions or hundreds of millions. Whatever that number is based upon what you are trying to achieve. So, with all of that, we have to look at what are the stories that
Mm.
connect people to who we are, what we represent, and how we are going to serve them. And that's where that level of scale and success comes from. So that's the entire guide to going viral book, is dives deep into the creative model we've developed over the past 8 years that tells you, well, how do you choose a format? How do you do that research? How do you analyze it? How do you essentially learn all of these nuances to tell your story, to show up authentically for yourself so that you can achieve the level of goals that you're looking for?
Got it. That is so needed, man. Like, again, I think people put the wrong energy on virality and not focused on the actual content. Like, and I know you've seen this. People can go viral with awful content, right? But I think what's more impactful is the messaging, the storytelling, and what's your end goal that you're actually trying to accomplish. And again, you go through all of that in all of your books. That seems to be a central theme. How important is it for you to know who your audience is? Because again, I think people miss that mark too. Everyone on Instagram isn't your audience. Everyone on LinkedIn isn't your audience. The 2 billion people on YouTube are not your audience. How important is it to signify who that is for
So, number one, I think it's critically important that you understand the audience that drives your business, because if you don't
you?
know that, then your business is probably struggling pretty significantly right now. So, I think number one
Mm,
is like, how are you going to drive business growth? And the reason that I focus on that a lot is sustainability. Like, I've seen this, I worked
yeah.
with the first wave of influencers back in like 2006, 2007, and there's these cycles that repeat like every 2 or 3 years. Well, you have a slew of content creators or influencers or even business owners that kind of scale on social media, but then they fall off. And a lot of
Yeah.
them burn out. A lot of them quit. Why? Because it's not driving the underlying revenue goals or business goals that allows them to keep doing it. Like, you need the
Hmm.
foundation to allow you the time, the energy to keep doing that. So that's critically important.
Yeah.
Number 2 is one of the big things that we work with people on and really advise is we leverage something called the generalist principle. So if you take your core expertise, obviously you have specific people that are going to buy your products or services. Those are your core customers, and you want to speak to them clearly and connect with them. However, the way social media works, like, the algorithms are looking for content that they can see to millions and millions of people and can grab and hold their attention. So anytime we open up our favorite
Hmm.
app, there's probably 150,000 pieces of content it could see to us and our customers based upon who we follow, the content we've engaged with. So what that means is there's a ton of competition out there. We're no longer just competing against our direct competition. Let's just say we're a dentist. We're not just competing against other dentists. We're competing against LeBron James. We're competing against Kim Kardashian, Netflix, Kevin Hart, like
Hmm.
all that teenage influencer down the street. So what the algorithms are looking for is how do we hold people's attention as long as possible so we can serve more ads. So what we look at is how do we take something like dentistry or taxes or legal advice and speak to the core audience, that our core customer base, but also broadening it out from there. So for an example, we worked with a leather craftsman named Tanner Leatherstein that sells leather goods and products. He's just super
Hmm.
passionate about high-end leather goods. But when he first started out, he was stuck at 2,000 followers because he was just making commercials about his leather wallets and things of that nature. So we helped him develop a
Yeah.
format called Is It Worth It? Where he buys a $5,000 Chanel handbag, deconstructs it on screen, and tells you whether it's worth the money that you're paying for it. That format, that
Nice.
ability to tell stories took him from 2,000 followers to 2.5 million, with over 500 million people viewing his content, and he can't even keep his products on the shelf. So that's kind of the big element here is how do we speak to our core audience, our core customer base, but still make it accessible and interesting to the general wider audience.
Mm, mm. Brandon, man, like, so I could literally talk to you for hours, and I'm not going to do that because nobody will listen to me and my show. But they should totally listen to you, man. Like, last question, and I want to go to a hook point here. You talk about the 3 seconds, right? Like, we've got 3 seconds to capture people, but then you also talk about you've got to build meaningful long-term connections as well. How do you balance 3 seconds and long-term connection?
So we live in a micro attention world, but it's micro attention from grabbing that attention. So we have 3 seconds
Mhm.
to grab the attention. But once we've grabbed it, and if we're a good storyteller, we can hold it. So if we look
Yeah.
at the medium that we're talking on right now, like this is half
Right.
an hour or longer. Like if we grab the attention, people will sit here and listen to us for 30 minutes. If you think about
Right.
like the latest season of Squid Games just came out. People will literally sit there and binge
Mhm.
watch that entire thing in one day. And it's the same thing with social media. I it took me like 2 or 3 days, but it wasn't I couldn't do it in one because it's so heavy. Um, but that's the same thing
Right.
applies for social media is like we need
Mm.
to master those first 3 seconds to have a chance to tell our story. Now, it's not just about mastering the first 3 seconds because we have to retain that attention.
Yeah.
But we live in a world where there's now 5 billion people on social media. There's over a billion pieces of social media content uploaded every day. There is a lot of competition, but that doesn't mean that once we've got somebody to stop and pay attention to us, that they won't stick with us for, a long period of time.
Mhm. I like it. I like it. What's a quick tip that you have to dominate 3 seconds? What's something everybody could do now to win or should focus on to win 3 seconds?
Let me start with a major mistake that I see people make. They try to do
Okay.
too much in the first 3 seconds. So they'll have like a title card, they'll have captions, they'll have somebody talking. And you can do that, but it's an advanced thing. Like you need to have a clear visual hierarchy. Is like, what do you want somebody to pay attention to in that first 3 seconds? Like we were just analyzing a video yesterday and there was a title card and we're like, there is no way that somebody can read this in 3 seconds. They won't connect with it.
Yeah.
So be super clear about what you want people to pay attention to in those first 3 seconds. In addition, have a very strong promise of value. Like, why should they stop? Why should they stick around? What is the promise of value that you're going to deliver on that says, you know what, I'm going to stop and watch and consume this piece of content?
Mm. Amazing. Amazing. Brendan, man, I know you're a busy human. You're one of the most sought after, I don't want to call you consultant, but you're one of the most sought after strategists in the world. So I just appreciate you taking time. This was truly honorable for me just to be able to pick your brain because a lot of these questions are questions that I personally have. So, bro, I just wanted to thank you for taking
No,
time
thank
with
you.
being
It's a
with
true
us.
pleasure connecting with you and everybody that tuned into this. And I definitely look forward to seeing your content in my feed soon and seeing your progress and success.
Yes, because I'm hiring you as my coach. So we'll have that conversation when we hang up. But where can people find and follow you and where do you want people to go to
Well,
connect
just
with
a
you?
little bit of a gift for your audience. Like if they go to goingviral.cc/MUP, it stands for Mick Unplugged podcast, they can download a copy of the Guide to Going Viral book for free. They can get a PDF there, and it breaks down a lot of what we talked about today. If they want to learn more about Hook Point, they can just go to hookpoint.com or they can check out like Instagram, LinkedIn. I release a lot of information there. I respond to DMs there as well, but those are probably be the best places to start.
That was such a generous offer, brother. Like I appreciate you genuinely for that. As this episode is coming up, I'm gonna make sure that I'm sharing that code. I'm gonna share all of your links and everything. If you're listening, if you're watching, go connect with Brendan right now because you're missing out. And Brendan, I'm going to tell you, you can't charge enough for what you do, brother, because the impact that you make, the lives that you change is second to none. So
No,
I
I appreciate you.
appreciate you,
Thank
man.
you so much for having me on the show. And yeah, look forward to continuing the conversation.
You got it. And for all the viewers and listeners, remember your because is your superpower. Go unleash it.